Now, what about stretching? So I see a lot of people when they do have a structured warm-up activity for their dogs, a lot of people talk about stretching. And one of the things I see a lot of people do is they will do it kind of slow, they will hold stretches and they'll be like stationary, static stretches. And if you think about the purpose of the warm-up, trying to get the heart rate up, I'll see some people where they start to get the heart rate up and then they stop everything and start stretching their dog and then the heart rate goes down. But there's some other things that you need to be aware of with stretching. I actually don't stretch my dogs before exercise. I put all my energy into a really, really good warm up. And then I save a focused stretching at the end of my training. And let me show you why. So you have different types of stretching. Dynamic stretching is the safest. So this is where the dog is actively stretching the muscles. They're moving like a play bow. They are moving into the position. They're actively moving in and out of the position. You're not manually holding their leg or positioning them. You're not holding it for an extended period of time. This could, if I did do a stretching and a warm up, it would be more dynamic, kind of keeping the dog moving. They're moving into their natural range of motion. This is the safest. But again, I do focus stretching after, not before. Static stretching is where you're stretching the muscle near the furthest point and you're holding it. Okay. This kind of stretching, I highly encourage, I'm going to tell you why, save that for after your training when the muscles are warm, not before. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But that holding and how long you hold it is really important too. Passive stretching is that external force, like when you're taking your arm and you're positioning the leg. In our online programs, I tell people I do not want to see any passive stretching unless I know that you've worked with a professional, like a veterinarian, a physical therapist, who in person can show you how much pressure to put on the leg or the body part, how long to hold it, because this type of passive, static passive stretching, that has the highest potential of actually creating an injury and also decreasing your dog's performance if you don't do it properly. So if you're going to be doing stretching, like I said, I don't focus on the stretching before the training. I do it after, but dynamic, it will be kind of the safest. And again, unless you have somebody working with you and showing you how to do it correctly. So here's the caution. We've seen this in research in humans, also in research in dogs. The effect of stretching on injury prevention has mixed results, but what they have found, and there's more human studies on this also, is when you do those passive stretches, when you do those stretches and you hold it, and you hold it for a period of time, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, what they're finding in some of these studies is that it's actually decreasing the muscle strength afterwards. They're seeing a potential of an increased risk of injury and actually a decrease in performance. So the recommendation for static stretching with this evidence that we've seen in the potential decreased muscle force is typically not recommended for doing that as your general warm-up. Now, there is some research on short stretches where you're doing it for a very short period of time. In the human research, they're saying like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. It's less likely to have those negative effects. For the dogs, there is research, like I said, on the humans and the dogs to show the potential for danger here. I tend to be on the more conservative side if there's a potential. So they'll say, if there's a difference of, 15, 30 seconds, I'd rather, you know what, let's just do a really good warm up and save my stretches for after. So the recommendations here, like if I'm going to be doing, here we're doing just a passive stretch where he's doing a nose to hip and he's holding it. This is a kind of stretch where he stops and hold it. I would be doing after my training or work with my dog. So some of the recommendations for this would be, again, perform it after the exercise, and to minimize the risk of injury from the stretching done improperly, or decreasing the power in the muscle, holding it for about 15 to 30 seconds to minimize the risk. And then anytime you're doing the stretches, you really want to keep the body in alignment. So I see some people when they're stretching the dog, the head's kind of up and arched and turned in an awkward position. The spine, does not have a nice neutral alignment. So you can see here as when he holds the stretch with his nose to the hip, his head and neck, the spine is all level. So he's not having his head really high. It's not having it low. I'm trying to keep that spine kind of in that nice level, kind of neutral position. And then this is a stretch that I like to do also. Again, I will hold it and do passive stretching and focus on holding it for 30 seconds or more after the training and work. But I like this one again because you can just see the dog is moving into a dynamic position. You want that nice neutral spine. I would probably maybe lower the head just a tiny bit to get a little bit more of that kind of that nice natural top line. So these are like just some examples. Those are more kind of general stretches. Again, you also want to be thinking about what's happening to the body for your job or sport. So that's kind of the reason I tell people, I actually don't stretch before training. And even when I do my own gym training and when I do run and exercise, I practice the same for myself. I will do a really good warm up, go do my exercise and training and running, and then I take about 30 minutes afterwards to kind of, rest and stretch and do my lower back exercises. I do that myself and focus on it after my training.